What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Sonic Movie Show, the only show that's about Sonic news, and Sonic movie news. Also, hey, video game movie reviews. We do those as well. My name is Ethan, and with me here to talk about 2016's Ratchet and Clank is Devin.
Can you hit the kill switch, please?
It's my feeling on this movie, yes. I remember, yes. Man. So, for folks that are new to the show and kind of this whole thing going on, in addition to doing the other things I mentioned before, one of our favorite things we like to do here is review video game movies. So movies based off video games, not the ideas of video games, but this specific video game property, franchise, or individual game release. Here is a movie based off that stuff. Sometimes it's one to one, sometimes it's the vague ideas, sometimes it's just the name, sometimes it's just an excuse to peddle alleged Nazi bullshit. Um, like maybe one movie.
Honestly, that was a good way to cover it. You've covered that beautifully of all the stuff that we've
Thank
watched
you.
up
Thank
to
you.
this point.
Um, we do a bunch of those, and for this quote unquote season of the Sonic Movie Show, we have compiled a specific list together. We did a draft on back and forth on which of these we think are going to be better received by us. So we're biased, but we're betting on our own biases, and we're getting points on all that stuff. So to recap the movies we've done for this season so far, we've done 2018's Tomb Raider,
hmm
Resident Evil Degeneration, which is the first of the animated Resident Evil movies, Tekken Blood Vengeance, Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge, and Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15. Now, for today's episode, we are doing the 2016 film animated by Rainmaker, Ratchet and Clank. So, as we like to kind of start these off by kind of talking about our experience with the video games, the franchise, and all that stuff. So, I'm going to start with you, Devin, because I've talked most of the episode so far. What is your experience with Ratchet and Clank as a series? How have you played these games?
Yeah, so I've only really played the very first one, the original one, on PS2. I think I was honestly, I think on Christmas when we got the PS2, which wasn't new, it was a handy down of my uncle's,
Okay.
which is fine, whatever. So I got a couple years late, but we had a couple games that came with it or whatnot. And one of the games was Ratchet and Clank, and I always liked it as a kid. I liked playing it, but I was still at the age where you ever like as a kid like you're playing a game and you get to a level that's really hard and you lost so many times that you start the entire game over thinking like you missed something or
Oh, no.
so I did that. But I got to the part where you have to swim. You're like drowning and you have to like swim out of an area. And I remember I couldn't beat it for the life of me. I don't know if I ever did, but I remember restarting the game multiple times, getting to that point, thinking I like missed an item to let me breathe underwater or something to that effect. Um,
Damn.
but I've always liked the music in it. Liked the gunplay in it. Uh, and yeah, it definitely was one of my more most played games. I think on the PS2 of the games we had. We didn't have too many games. But like if I was playing a solo game, well, that's one of the games I'd probably be playing. But then after that, like I installed the game that this movie is based off of, or whatever how it works. Maybe vice
I'll
versa.
explain it in a moment, but yeah.
Yeah. I installed it because it was like free with PlayStation Plus the one time,
Yeah.
and I didn't play it, but my partner's brother was in town, and like I came home from work and he like beat the whole game. So I'm like, "Oh, was it good?" He's like, "Yeah, it was great." And I'm like, "Cool." But I was like, I know it like
Yeah.
really like I wasn't like mad or anything. I was just like, "Oh, I didn't know you could beat the
He,
game
he
in a
got you
whole day."
trophies for it.
He did. He
It's a
did.
short game. It's a short
Yeah, I
one.
figured because I was like, it was like a 8-9 hour shift, so it wasn't that long. So I was like, damn, you must have just either been breeze, maybe it might be a short game, or maybe you just breeze through it. But yeah, after that, like I mean, after those two, like I don't even know how many games there has been. I know wasn't there a
Ooh.
Clank game or something like
There was
that at one
Secret
point?
Agent Clank for PSP and PS2. There was this weird moment where Sony was like, PSP might not be making up some enough money. So some of our main games like Jack and Daxter, Lost Frontier, Secret Agent Clank, there's also going to be PS2 versions of those as well,
Mm.
which I mean are going to control a little better. But yeah,
But I
um,
was gonna say yeah, Ratchet and Clank, but I was more of a Jack and Dexter kid in terms of like that kind of style of games. Like I did beat all of Jack and Dexter.
nice,
Um,
nice. Did you ever play Jack 2 or Jack 3?
mm-mm.
Okay, I
I
have
remember I went to like a cousin's house or something. I played a little bit of Jack 3, but it was just a couple hours at most. I'm like, oh,
I
that's
have
cool. I should get this, and then
unfortunate
just
cold
never
hard
did.
truths to us Jacksters, as I'm now going to call the fan base. Um,
Jacksters.
so I have
I'm a
played,
Daxters.
yeah. Um, so I have played the first Ratchet and Clank game and beat it. I've played the second Ratchet and Clank game called Going Commando and beat it. I have maybe played like a quarter of the way through Ratchet and Clank 3 called Up Your Arsenal. Um, and then I played the remake of, well, so it's they advertise it as the game based off the movie based off the game. So the
Mm.
remake game is actually based off what the movie
So
story wants to
what was it
tell.
like? Was it like a soft reboot? Assuming based off
Yes,
this movie.
and I'm very happy to report that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for PS5, which I played, beat, and platinumed. I also platinumed the 2016 game as well. Um, just ignores that because there are retcons that the movie and the games the game the 2016 movie and 2016 game called Ratchet and Clank do that fortunately are not actually considered canon, like Dr. Nefarious being in it. He's the villain of the third game. That's where he starts. And he pops up in a couple other ones later, but he's not in the first game. He shouldn't be in this movie. Also, he's a robot. So they attempted to give like some sort of origin to how he became a robot. I thought he always was a robot, which is weird. Because his plot and reason why he's the villain in the third game is he wants to like have a robot uprising. Um, but I know that
Like
there's
Detroit becoming human, right?
yes. And he loves the TV show called Secret Agent Clank, which Clank did for money or something like that.
Mm.
Um, so after Up Your Arsenal was a game called Ratchet Deadlocked, then a PSP game called Ratchet and Clank Size Matters, then Secret Agent Clank. Then there was Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction on PS3, Ratchet and Clank Future Quest for Booty, Ratchet and Clank Future A Crack in Time. Then there
Oh my
was
god,
a few
I
spin-off
feel like
games.
I feel like you're just making up shit as you
No, and
go.
those games were good. The PS3 games I heard were really good. I own them, but I haven't played them. And then there was spin-off games. There was like a four-player multiplayer thing called All for One. Then there was like an RTS game called Full Frontal Assault. There's a lot of innuendos in these titles, Devin.
Clearly.
And then the day the PS4 came out, for PlayStation 3, they released one final Ratchet and Clank game, because that's what it would feel like, called Into the Nexus. And then
I think I
nothing.
remember that one. I remember that one. I didn't play it, but like I
It
remember
was
seeing
that
like
one was shorter. So
advertising.
that was a short budget Ratchet and Clank game. The remake was a short budget Ratchet and Clank game. And then Rift Apart was $70 PS5 game, which I enjoyed. But yeah, so I played the first two, a little bit of the third one, played the remake, and then played the latest one. So there's a lot in the
So
middle that I
you've
have
played
not
a
played.
good. You've played at
Yeah.
least 50% of them.
Now, one thing there's aspects in the original. I don't know how much you remember of the original. That were rebooted and changed. So I guess we can kind of talk about those a little bit because I find all of those changes bad.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember Captain Quark or whatever.
yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna go on and say
That's-
something. I remember
No, yeah,
that.
Ratchet and Clank and him. 'Cause I remember, like,
Um,
I think in the first game, I mean, like I said, I didn't beat it, so I don't know if they ever like connected. But he was always on like a sign or something in the
yeah,
main metropolis area. Like he seemed to be like a popular figure,
yeah, and like
but not like a Superman, but more like a just almost more like a politician. I guess the best way to
really,
describe in terms of the advertising. That's like the vibe I always got when I was younger. Was that like, oh, he's a highly influential figure.
I'm sure you as a
You
kid
know.
thought that exact phrase. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, like they do the betrayal part so much better in that first game because it is literally shocking and out of the blue, and it feels less like he is a complete moron that's been duped and more like he's very jealous and he's actually kind of smart and he's doing this for the money, so to speak. But
Clout.
then he basically gets arrested. But then like the third game, he comes back, but he has basically lived in the wilderness with monkeys, and now he thinks he's a monkey, and that's like his excuse for not needing to go to jail. Like it's kind of weird. But Ratchet and Clank also like for I would say 5/8 of the first game hate each other. Like they hate each other. Like because Ratchet is there's one way and Clank is another way, and like they start off on the same page, and then Ratchet blames Clank for something. Clank can't get over the fact that Ratchet is kind of narrow sighted on the whole Quark thing and all this, and like Ratchet wants revenge, Clank wants to save the galaxy, that type of stuff. So they cooperate and eventually become friends. This movie just pretends that that's not a thing, which is very weird.
Yeah, they kind of
Um,
just are cool from the
right, and they
as
begin
soon as they meet.
cool, but like it's more of like Ratchet's more like, oh, I can use this guy to meet my hero, Captain Quark.
I will
I'll,
say honestly,
I don't know.
I know we're gonna get more into the movie, but like, it didn't really feel like a Ratchet and Clank were like best buds as like the marketing and whatnot. You like I said, I only
Yeah,
played the first game, but like with the marketing and the whole, like, it's in the title, Ratchet and Clank, and it just feels like Clank is just part of
a
just the
side
group of
team,
people.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that it's
weird.
mostly just a Ratchet movie with a couple Clank scenes.
Like when we get
Um,
towards the end and Clank says like, when Clank calls Ratchet partner, I'm like, that wasn't earned. Like that was supposed to be a moment of like, are we like early movies like, oh, like it would be something where like, oh, we're not friends or something like that. We're like, no, we're partners, something like that, and it gets brought back. There's setup and payoff. This was just a payoff to the assumption. I mean, their names on like, of course they're friends because we're told this by the title of the movie, so to speak.
yeah.
Um, it's very weird. I will say that 2016 remake game uses cutscenes. Some of the cutscenes are just segments of the movie, and
Mm.
like you can tell that it's the animation is different. I don't mean like it's like ugly or bad. I don't really think the movie looks all that great, to be honest. But like the way characters kind of move is different than how Insomniac animated their characters in the cutscenes that they actually did in Engine versus these CG ones. And my favorite part, and we're not, the game has no factor in how we rank this movie, but I just want to bring this up. There is a part in the movie where like Ratchet and Clank, oh, we're with the Galactic Rangers. By the way, that's not nothing. That's not in the first game at all. It's just Captain Quark. The Rangers
That's
are
what I
in the
thought. I don't
third
remember
game.
any of the
They
other
made up
people,
these
so
characters for this movie.
okay.
They made these characters up for this movie. There are Galactic Rangers in the third game, but it's more of just like a bunch of Buzz Lightyear type of people, if that makes sense.
Right.
But there's part in the movie where Ratchet and Clank, okay, yes, we're in it. We're gonna split up now. Ratchet, you're going on a you're gonna be taught how to be a ranger, and Clank, you're gonna meet Rosario Dawson, who's eventually gonna play the orange lightsaber lady in the Star Wars show. It's 2016 now, and she's this other character. You're gonna be with her, and then Ratchet says, or like one of either Clank or Ratchet says goodbye, like they wave. All right, I'll see you when this is all over. And then the movie obviously has them do other things. When the game uses that segment, it then cuts to a gameplay part where you're just trying to climb a tower, and Ratchet runs out, and then because it's the Clank's part of the move set, he just follows Ratchet and then hops on the back as if nothing happened. It was very weird. Like
Interesting.
it's I would almost recommend people look that up online of just how jarringly weird it is, because when I played that game I had not seen this movie. I watched the movie today for the first time. So I'm like, some of these characters, these Galactic Rangers, are just not really in the game all that much. And so to see these CG cutscenes that are like, I feel like none of it made sense, and it was very jarring for me. One other thing I'm just gonna mention, because you mentioned this yourself and you talked about you playing the first game. You mentioned the music. Now,
Yeah.
Some Insomniacs fans out there might know that the drummer for The Police wrote the music for the first three Spyro the Dragon games, which is cool, and those are great soundtracks. And then he must have left or something, and some sound designer in maybe that's not the right term, but someone at Insomniac clearly wanted to continue that legacy on how I forget what the drummer's name in The Police, Sting's band. Um, I forget what his name is. They clearly wanted to continue that like kind of lineage on how very sample heavy music that they did for Spyro for Ratchet 1. And then
Stuart
after Ratchet
Copeland.
Yes, that's the name. After Ratchet and Clank 1, they would do a completely different style that felt more like Star Wars-y Disney orchestral sweeps, and I would never say that the music is bad in any of those games. The first game's soundtrack is legit a bop, and I just posted. Go on YouTube right now, folks. Pause this video. Go on YouTube, search Ratchet and Clank OST, and then I think one of the very first ones on there is the first planet, Veldin, which Ratchet's on, and that song is great. And some of the other songs in this first game are great, very sample heavy, very beat driven, and they have a vibe of fun bounciness. You're going to be shooting guns at weird aliens, and you're jumping, and you're smashing crates.
It's definitely like, from what I remember, it was very like fantasy, but also did feel like spacey at the same time. Like they did a good job of getting that vibe. Yeah.
And like I'm not going to shit on the soundtracks for the other games, but they're way more forgettable than this one. Where like I don't have that video playing, but the song is in my head right now. I know what it's like. So that's that.
And then you have if you're collecting like the nuts and bolts from the downed enemies and stuff, that was like good sound design. I remember that sound effect. Like
it's the same tech that they used whenever Spyro passed by a gem and it magnetically went to him. It's that effect with the bolts, and it's like it's a great. The whole thing is great.
It's just like it also reminds me of like the Lego games, like Lego Star Wars.
Oh yeah, picking up the
very satisfying sounding like collecting of Lego pieces.
That's very important because you're going to be seeing that millions of times over the course of the dozen hours you're playing this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to be annoyed of like one having to get the stuff and then also it being like a crazy sound effect or something where you're just like, can I play this on mute? Because there's been games like that where you're grinding and then like
it's a podcast.
I'm kind of sick of hearing this.
Yeah. Just mean about like game feel and stuff. Another thing I wanted to tell folks at home to pause the video for, I played through the second Ratchet and Clank game. I also played through the latest Ratchet and Clank game. Do yourself a favor at home, folks. Just look up gameplay footage of Ratchet and Clank 2 Going Commando. Especially if you've played any of the recent Ratchet and Clank games, let alone the most recent one. You'll be shocked how this, I think, 2003 video game is so close to the gameplay of the modern ones. They got it right. Like, here's the cold, hard truth. Jak 2 and 3, they're not that great. I feel like, even though I'm a big Jak and Daxter fan, I feel like Ratchet and Clank overall are as a better trilogy than Jak and Daxter was of the PS2 kind of games. Because guess what? Shooting guns as Jak in 2 and 3, they don't feel good. They straight up did that because of GTA 3 and Ratchet and Clank. Which is also kind of funny because Ratchet and Clank uses the same engine Naughty Dog made for Jak and Daxter. They helped them make.
They also did that because of the War on Terror.
The War on Terror, yes, guns for everyone. It's fun to have a gun. But yeah, the gunplay in Ratchet 2 on 2003 video game, it just feels so much more close to modern than what I would have expected. Let's talk about the movies, though. Overall, I know we kind of gave some opinions already, and I know I've talked a lot. What did you think about this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I want to start off of like why I drafted it where I drafted it. And I don't remember. I'm sure I said it during the episode, the draft episode there, which I'd highly recommend. That was a really fun episode to record. And like out of the bunch of movies, there was a lot of like no name stuff. And I think after this movie, it's kind of like shot in the dark for both of us. It's gonna be really interesting to see how this all falls because I could see it going in so many different directions.
Yeah.
I only picked this one because I'm just hoping that this movie is just all right and I can get like a very mediocre score. I'm just hoping it's not like terrible. Well, like I heard that the movie's not good, but I'm like, okay, maybe the ceiling for this movie is that like surprisingly solid, and the low will be like, well, it's just bad, but won't be offensively bad or anything like that. So I want to start off with that. So my expectations going in were already kind of like,
you didn't draft this thinking it was going to be terrible.
yeah. Right. It was more of just like, I hope that I enjoy it enough that I can do a podcast about it and have a decent amount of good things to say about it. But overall, I mean, the first word that comes to mind after watching this, and I realized it real quick, and I was like really hoping something would change. But afterwards, I was just like, wow, that was boring. That's the word, boring. I wouldn't say the movie's bad. It's just boring. Like there's stuff that happens, and there's characters that do things, and like there's a plot, there's some settings, but for some reason, I'm just like, who cares? Or like, I just felt very like, where's the comedy? Where's the action? Where's the like anything that I remember from the Ratchet and Clank game? Just like something, like not even like a joke. Like there's no joke that really was like, wow, that was really clever or anything like that. I usually take notes, and usually I have like a good 2 pages worth. I have 1 page, and it's mostly just the first 15 minutes.
When you cared.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I like the Wilhelm scream bit was kind of funny, I guess. But like there was a lot of I don't know, just a lot of nothing. But like there's stuff there at the same time. It's so hard to describe, but it's just like there was stuff on screen happening, but it felt like nothing was happening. There was no soul, I guess is the best way. It felt like puppets or something. I don't know. But boring. That's the word I'm going to use.
The word that came to my mind was vapid, which is very close to boring. You're right. Things just happen. We are just kind of pulled along a course of events that just seem to just jump wildly. Characters are not really given anything to be. They do things, but they don't be anything. I think even the very basic idea of Captain Quark being like a narcissist, self-absorbed, where even though they show it to us, it still feels like they're just telling it to us. Like we don't really see him come to some sort of grips of like, but without this, I'm nothing type of thing where Ratchet can be like, no, you can be anything as long as you do something, which this movie doesn't do much of anything.
It felt like the way it was told and how you're kind of saying it is that it's like when you're a kid and you're writing you have to write a short story for the class or something, and how kids usually write are always like, once upon a time there was this, and then this happened, and then this happened.
It's just a list of events.
Yeah, it's just that's what this. I guess that's. And that's. I don't think it's totally fair for this film because like I'm not trying to shit on the writing too much because we're not movie writers. If anything, all the writers are on strike right now. But like, you know what I mean? Where there's something really like fundamentally missing that is just entertaining from it. Where like, yeah, it feels like just a list of events, and it's just like, but why do I need to care? I think Captain Quark is the closest to the best character in this movie, but like I don't really care.
At some point, he becomes very just trite and like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, we get it.
Right.
You're just a dick. You're a douchebag. You know what I mean? Like, he's not redeeming at all.
Yeah.
Like, even at the end, and I get it, they were hoping to make sequels. By the way, before this movie came out, but after it was announced, maybe there was even a trailer at this point. But some point between announcement of this movie and release, Sony also announced with a still image, hey, maybe even 2 still images, hey, we're making a Sly Cooper movie as well. Never heard anything about that again.
Remember that?
Because he was weirdly a little bit more realistic, I guess kind of like Rocket the Raccoon. With like raccoon. Individual whiskers being more realized and like a flat cartoony look that obviously the games have like a
like the Garfield movie.
Yes, just like the Garfield movie. And I was reminded of that because there's a point where like, oh, what's a Lombax? I'm looking through my database and like you see Daxter pop up, you see Sly Cooper pop
Yeah.
up. And like, okay, it's a nod that I wasn't expecting. The PlayStation 2 boot up sound was a nod I wasn't expecting. That got a Marvel movie level of reference from me. But like,
Right. That's the best way to describe it. Like, I think at 2016, maybe that really slapped. You know what I mean?
maybe
But
it
like
did.
now,
Maybe it did. Now we're
maybe
like,
we're
oh my
we're
God.
kind of
We
Easter
get
egged
it.
out a little
You
bit.
told us that Thanos existed in another movie. Thanks, Marvel. Like, I get it. I am Groot. I'm glad someone else said that. Great.
I get it.
Thank you.
I mean, there was a lot of references like the Wilhelm scream. There was a couple other ones that I'm not remembering, but yeah, I was kind of it just felt, I guess that's the best way. Maybe they're trying to do the Marvel route in 2016, which I guess is
Maybe.
fair because those
But
were
it's just
popular.
so damn boring.
But
And the jokes that they attempt to do, I
are not
swear,
good. The very first
like,
5 minutes tells you the tone for this whole movie of like what the humor they're trying to do, and it's not for us. I don't like to say humor is bad,
but it's not even for kids. Here's the thing, I know what
I'm
you're
trying to give it the
about.
benefit of the doubt.
Those
I'm trying to
first
give it the
few
benefit of the
minutes
doubt.
with Chairman Drek, played by Paul Giamatti, like, I'm sorry, dude, you phoned it the fuck in. I will just put a quick aside. I'm glad James Arnold Taylor is still Ratchet, and then I forget what their names are, but Clank, Dr. Nefarious, and Captain Quark are still the same voice actors. Is it crazy that they are not
Jim
even
Ward,
close to being top billing?
Yeah, David K.
Yep,
And then,
that's Clank. By the way, he was not.
James.
He
Yeah,
was
James Arnold
Clank
Taylor.
throughout the whole thing. James Arnold Taylor wasn't Ratchet in the very first video game. He came in during the second game, and then therefore onwards. So the very first Ratchet and Clank game has a different voice. But I find it really weird that Paul Giamatti is top billing in this movie. And the main cast isn't because they're just lowly voice actors. And meanwhile, we have Sylvester Stallone as a made-up character. The Victor, the giant robot, he's a made-up character. They also have
like if you're looking at this from face
John
value,
Goodman is in this movie as a guy you see in the beginning of the game and never again. What? He's just Ratchet's boss. He's not his dad.
I mean, like if you look at the cast just from face value, like it's a pretty solid cast for an animated video game movie, right?
But it reeks to me we need money. We need to get the star power, otherwise no one's gonna see it. That's what it reeks.
But if you go back to all the stars are like just side characters, except for, I mean Victor has a couple more lines than I was expecting, but
he's a whatever
Grimmeth
character.
is at the beginning and the end. He fills in some space here and there. And then like you have the side space rangers and they're just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
But that's like not the actors' faults. It's the
I don't know. A lot of them feel phoned in. Like, listen, Sylvester Stallone.
I'm just saying I don't think
physical
they were given
actor.
Much.
He's not a voice actor. I have to give a pass to Sly here. Also, he's really fucking old at that point. So like, I mean, he's acting. Yeah, like I've seen the what's the movie series where he is just a bunch of old action stars come together that he's started? Expendables. I want to say the Unbreakables, but that'd be funny. It's just a bunch of what's his name. But yeah, everyone kind of phones it in. It feels like, except for like James Arnold Taylor and David K. I think you said.
I just don't feel like they were given much because it's just like
it's a bad script. It's a bad movie. I wanted to mention the jokes. Even the attempts at humor, a lot of the time, like, I don't know if it's an editing thing, if it's an audio mixing thing, but the delivery feels like there's something missing for most of these, where it just feels like, and the jokes
it doesn't feel organic.
It just passes you. It's just a thing that drives by.
It doesn't feel like
quick.
People sitting in the studio together recording their lines. It felt like, okay, John Goodman's available, come on in. Okay, this person's available, come on in. And like, I get it, sometimes that's how they do it. But then either A, you have to work the script better to like reduce the chance of lack of chemistry or whatever it is. Or maybe it's on the voice actors to deliver the lines better. But I don't think the lines they were given really were good. But the jokes also weren't good.
No,
so it's just like a lot of. But like I said, maybe the jokes aren't for us, and I don't want to like say they were bad. But like
I would argue,
at the
I don't
same
think they're
time,
for anyone.
They're just not, unfortunately. So even if you have Jim Carrey in the booth, if the jokes aren't written well, it won't. Sometimes it doesn't matter.
I feel like Jim Carrey would be one of those actors that would say no to certain jokes and say, no, we're rewriting
Maybe
this.
that's
To be
also
fair,
true. That's
to be a little
also
fair.
true.
But at the same time, John Goodman, Sylvester Stallone, Paul Giamatti, they showed up to collect a check. That is the energy they brought in this movie.
Yeah,
I don't see.
man, I don't blame him.
Hey, get your money, whatever. I'm not blaming that act, but like maybe one of them has a kid that plays games or something like that, and like yeah, I've heard maybe of Ratchet and Clank.
I feel like these kind of roles also are just like,
this isn't the Raul Julia, Bison era. My kid really likes Street Fighter, so I went in and to slay in this movie for my kid. I don't see that energy in here. And now, to be fair, that's on a really.
I'm
high
just saying.
pedestal.
I feel like these kind of movies too, like the time commitment is a lot less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you. Not saying this is what they did. I don't know what they did, but they could spend 2 weeks in the booth doing this movie as opposed to being 3 months on set.
Yeah,
in person, having to
it.
memorize lines and all that. And I know we've had this discussion before when we rate movies. Is like that's not saying voice acting is easy or whatnot. It's a different skill set, but I think the time commitment is a little bit different. Is what I'm saying. Not saying it's easy or harder, but I think for these kind of actors, this might be quote unquote less of a time commitment for them. So maybe they don't spend as much energy into it either.
And like, hey, you can tell,
listen, this movie will get at most $20 million in the box office. So like, I don't need to worry about. I know this movie isn't going to get me an Academy Award. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's going to get me a paycheck. Ratchet and Clank had a box office of 11 million.
Okay, so that was
closer to 12 to be fair, but yeah.
But I know it lost money. I know that.
Yeah, oh for sure, and that probably scared PlayStation away. I think you can obviously tell that the seasoned voice actors are seasoned voice actors because guess what? James Arnold Taylor does a good job as Ratchet in this movie. And again, the script is one thing, but like I thought he was great. Like I can see all that in there with them. But there's another part of this movie too that bugs me, and it's attempt to have maybe not a message or a theme, but a reoccurring thing that is like a source of conflict for our characters, which is that you have Rosie O'Darson's character, not Elsa, not Alyssa, not Elvira,
Alaris. Yeah.
And Clank.
Alaris.
Yeah. The two of them. Oh, by the way, I did appreciate when we first introduced her, she's playing some sort of video game, and it's Ratchet and Clank 3, but in the zoomed in first person mode, which had multiplayer. Had like I think it even used the online multiplayer, which is crazy. Her and Clank are like the strategists, but everyone's just a meathead and they just want to go in and shoot. And several times in this movie, there's can we talk? The lines are really like, we only need 3 minutes to convey a plan to you.
It's not even that long. It was like 15 seconds or whatever it was. Yeah, it was like,
and they do that, and everyone's like, no, all the goddamn time. And when we get to the final point where someone's like, no, listen to her. What she have to say? Oh, I have a basic idea. I don't know how we would do it though. And it's like, oh my god. Like, movie, you had your chance to do if we just do this and this, I'm off screen here. If we do this and this and this and this, we're gonna win. Like, they had a moment to do something like that where characters are like, oh, all we need to do is fucking listen. But you know what I mean? But
yeah, it seemed more of like weird. The lesson that they learned was like, yeah, let everyone speak, but like, it really was like, no, we'll just let this one person speak because we just told them to shut up the entire film.
Right.
And then like
bullied them.
And then it just feels like they're just appeasing them, and rather than like actually taking their advice. I mean, I think they'd wind up doing what they said, but it was more of just like, we came up with it. They added more details to it.
Yeah.
It just, I feel like if they're trying to do a comedic bit of that, like there's a different way to execute it. Or if they were trying to teach the lesson of like, hey, you should always like let other people speak and like hear their opinions, and when coming up with a plan or whatever it is, like you should. It didn't feel like that. It just felt like, okay, I guess we're all buddy now, so we should let you speak because it's the right thing to do. And that was the other lesson. That was the lesson they kept like reiterating too with Ratchet, was like, it's not about how big the good thing is. It's like if you're just doing good things, which I'm like, that's cool and all, but like, he's pretty like selfish. He kind of just keeps leaving his job. Which, I
Right.
mean, one, that's
When
kind of
when
base for me,
he's
but
when
like, you know what I
after
mean?
all that happens and
He
he's
just seems
back
to be
in
like
his
focusing on
garage.
him's like, I'm just gonna go try to save the world the
Yeah.
entire time. Like,
Towards the end of the movie,
I don't
after
know.
they fail, after a planet gets exploded, and Ratchet's back in his garage, and then Clank comes up and Ratchet's like, but all those people lost those homes. I have to take responsibility. And in that moment, his idea of taking responsibility is just not being a ranger anymore. And then Clank's like, no, you got to do something to help. That's what taking responsibility. But like, it's not exactly conveyed in how I just say it. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's very weird. Like, but going on to the whole like,
No,
let
I
people
think he said, yeah,
speak.
he was like, it's not you taking responsibility. It's like, what can you do next time? And it's just like, that was kind of like the
Yeah,
attitude it was. And it was like,
this still
he,
means actually
like,
doing something because like, yes, going and hiding
and
is
the
not taking
implication is
responsibility.
different when like, I don't know, maybe you hurt someone's feelings or something. Like, that's one thing. But
Yeah,
like,
a planet
a
worth of people
planet,
lost their homes. Like,
millions and millions of people
yeah,
lost their ways of life. But like,
which
whatever.
is insane. Which is insane.
Back to my day job.
I also don't remember in the original game the bad guys winning. Because they won. He got what he wanted. Obviously, it turns out in the end, but like bad in the end. But I don't remember that in the original. I think the remake, obviously, video game follows what the movie does. But we tell Clank, we tell forgot her name again, Rosario Dawson's character, or I'm just gonna call her E.
Alaris.
Alaris. E. Laris. Like, oh, she has what used to be Dr. Nefarious's job, and that's why he's mad and a bad guy, because they did that to him too. And I'm like, he's such a funny character in the video games. He's hilarious, legitimately hilarious. Um, and like that's the really shitty origin story of why he's a bad guy is because people made fun of him and called him the king of the nerds or whatever. Like, God, like, and it goes back like Captain Quark is just a humongous douchebag in this movie, and
Yeah. Yeah.
he's more of an of a ignorant idiot, but also super into himself, but also does actually want to do heroic things in the video games. But he's
He only wants
also,
to do
I
heroic
don't know.
things in this for like the like attention and
Yeah,
having like clout for the fame.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's less about like doing a good thing for the sake of doing good. You know what
yeah.
I mean? It's
Which is, it's like
and at
that.
the
I
end
feel
he's
like they
still like
translated, but it still has this weird douchebaggy element that wasn't in the video games. If that makes sense, like he's not an asshole. I don't feel like anywhere but this movie. Um, Boy,
Is there
and
any
again,
is
oh,
there
sorry, you go on.
anything I was gonna say, is there anything in this film that you do like? I mean, I feel like we've been consistently shitting on it. So, is there anything in this that you did like? I will say I did like I wouldn't call it a plot twist, but I like that what I thought was gonna be the main villain gets kind of usurped by the alien guy, and like they kind of gets thrown to the wayside and then killed. And I'm like, you know what? That's kind of
I guess,
interesting.
I guess,
That was the only thing that was really going for me in terms of the plot. I was like, oh, I was not expecting that. So I think that's kind of cool. Is that like, oh, you thought the main villain was like had his mad scientist, but like, no, the mad scientist is actually the main villain.
yeah. And
He
again,
kind of
Dr.
was three
Nefarious is
steps
not in the
ahead.
original game, so like they made that for this movie. In the remake, he's even more. He's like in the very end of the remake game, which is very weird.
Mm.
But
Yeah, I do like
I don't know.
yeah, and I do like Doctor Nefarious a lot more than
Drek,
what was
Chairman Drek, the villains.
Drex Brax, whatever his name was.
Brax was one of the Rangers. Drek was Paul Giamatti's villain character. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah,
Doctor
Drex.
Nefarious is a very fun and very funny character, especially in Rift Apart. He's hilarious in that one. Um, it's just weird that he's like a green alien man and not a robot, but I digress. One thing I liked about the movie, it's honestly, I feel like an asshole for saying I have to really think because I don't know. Nothing really of substance. I mean, I guess I will say, the video game voice actors showed up and they did their best and they did a good job with what they had. I will say that. And I will say the animators in some scenarios were able to capture a bit of the animations of how Ratchet moves in the game. His run cycle specifically. I like to say this a lot, although I've never said this out loud, but I like to say this a lot in my head. A good video game where a character is running around in 3D, you got to have that run cycle good. I can name Jack and Daxter's a game that has a good run cycle. Ratchet and Clank, he has a good run cycle. But there are games that have bad run cycles, and that just affects your feel of the game. You're like, it's one of those subconscious things. And Ratchet has a good run cycle in this movie. I saw that in this game. The kind of bounciness to it was or in this movie was in this movie in some parts. I guess I would say that's a good thing, but does that feel more like the PlayStation 2 boot up sound and seeing Daxter on a TV for half a second? Does I feel like it's in that zone and less like that's why I said I don't really have anything of substance that I really feel like is good. I will say, like you said in the beginning, the movie may be boring, but it's not bad. Like I wasn't there going, this is terrible. It just has nothing good going for it. I feel like
Right.
might be the best way I can describe it. There's nothing
Yeah.
going
And it wasn't
for it.
it wasn't for lack of like I wouldn't say it's lack of trying either. Like I think the animation is decent for the time, and it definitely is lower budget. So I'm not gonna like
Things look sparse, and
we just got done watching Super Mario Brothers movie, so I feel like going
Oh
from
my
that to
God.
this,
Yeah,
this isn't helpful.
Right.
So I'm trying to be like, hey, for 2016, and not comparing it to like the big studios, like this isn't. We've watched some video game movies with like similar budgets and similar smaller animation studios, and like this one looked a lot better than those. I think it looks a lot better than like the Resident Evil movie that we just watched. And that was one of my picks. You know what I mean? Like I hate to say that, but like you know what I mean. And it's better than like I wouldn't say it's good as like the Final Fantasy ones, but at least like it was watchable. Like Kingsglaive, like it was hard to watch at moments because of the frame rate or whatever the like how stuff is
weird.
moving.
It was very weird.
But at least
in
this one is like
Stills,
consistent.
Stills, that was a beautiful movie, but in motion,
Right.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so like I think the animation is like all right. It's decent. Like it gets the job done, and I think they tried there. It wasn't like they phoned it in there. But yeah, I think it's a lack of just soul. Is really what this movie.
Yeah.
I have the biggest issue. It's just like a lot of nothing. So like I'll give them credit for trying, but just feels like they were just doing it for the sake of doing it. It felt like, it's just a list of events happen and they're telling you why things are happening rather than making you. It doesn't feel organic. It just felt everyone was just kind of doing every character was just doing their own thing. Or I guess just to say it just felt like it didn't feel like the chemistry was there between when it came to the joke telling, the dialogue between characters. My other biggest beef with this film, though, is that like I mentioned earlier, briefly, was that like Clank wasn't. It didn't feel like Clank was really in it at all.
Yeah.
He kind of just
disappeared
weird at moments.
The movie's called Ratchet and Clank. Put fucking Clank on Ratchet's back for most of the movie. God damn it! Like
they should be talking with each other like 70% of the time in terms of any dialogue that's happening. And I get like it's kind of an origin story for both of them, but yeah, like by the end, I'm like, why? Like you said, why are they buddies? Like why are they even? Why is Clank even visiting his shop at the end there? Like why do you care?
Yeah,
like it felt like this was just business. Like it just felt like coming to work. Like you know what I mean? That's it's not like he got fired and then like you came to see how he was doing. Like you wouldn't do that. Like unless you really were like best buds or whatever. But it didn't feel like they were best buds. It just felt like very transactional.
Yep. Now, granted, that was like the first person Clank ever met, technically. You know what I mean? So I guess there's some attachment there, but that movie's not actually looking that deep into things. This movie had a budget of $20 million. So yes, that would explain it is a lower budget animated movie. And granted, yes, you have Sylvester Stallone, you have John Goodman, you have Paul Giamatti. Those three actors alone are probably taking $5 million easy, probably more, from your budget. Then not to mention all the other big name actors that they put in the credits before the main 4 video game characters. But this movie was directed by Kevin Munro. This was his last directorial. No, this was not his last directorial debut or his last directorial movie. But he was the director and writer on the 2007 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie called TMNT animated.
I remember
He was
that. Yeah.
executive producer of the Heavenly Sword movie, which is on our list at some point in the future to watch. Um,
Hey, he was a
uh,
storyboard artist for Hey Arnold. That's pretty cool.
yeah, and the Ant Bully, remember that movie? He
70
was a
he did
concept artist.
75 episodes.
Yeah, very, very strange. He did a My Little Pony movie as a storyboard artist and creative consultant, but he's not really that big in the Hollywood thing in terms of what we might have hoped for. I don't know. Yeah, do what you can, I guess is it. But yeah, woof. This movie was a big old woof.
Yeah. I, I guess I'm disappointed that like my pick at the very least. But like I said, I didn't have high expectations for it, so I'm not like upset. I'm more just disappointed. I'm like, man, I was just kind of hoping there might be like it might have been just all right, and that would have been exceeding expectations. Like I was like, if I can get like even a middle of the tier range with this film, that'd be
Yeah,
huge. So like, I already know where I'm going to put this.
I
Once we get
agree.
into the
Why don't we actually
rankings, but
talk about that?
yeah,
I guess final thoughts on the movie. It's very boring. There's nothing good going for it. I guess if I can
yeah.
just jump in and talk for
If
both of
you're
us.
looking for just visual fodder for your
I
brain,
feel
I
like
guess
there's
put
other
this
things
on.
to watch instead.
Yeah, like
I don't
I mean,
know.
like even
If
putting
you
it on
out
in the
there are doing a
background
video
would
game movie review podcast, watch this movie. There we go. That's a
right. That'd be
target
the only
weekend.
reason.
Yeah.
Like I
Or
said, like
else
even having
if
this on in
you
the background wouldn't be,
really
even be
like
worth
Ratchet
it.
and Clank, I don't know. I mean, like we played again. We're even though I played like more games than you, there's still a lot more that I haven't played than I have. So I'm still considering myself in the like I dipped my feet in the water. You know what I mean? And like you are. So we're not super big Ratchet fans. I would like to know in the comments below on this video on YouTube or on Twitter at Sonic Movie Show or Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're watching this right now. My house, you knock on the window. Um, let me know if you're a big Ratchet and Clank fan, like what you actually thought of the movie, and be honest. Are we stupid? I don't know. I don't think so, but
Is this one of
let us
those
know.
movies where like if you've played everything, it rewards you, kind of like the Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge? We kind of had that conversation,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
with like some of the Tekken games where you knew all the characters, I had no fucking clue what I was
yeah,
watching.
yeah.
Like does it fall because of that? But I don't feel like it does, because I feel like this movie, I want to say, is a good standalone movie, but you know what I mean, that it shows the characters, it introduces the characters, it has an origin
Sure.
story for Ratchet and
Yeah,
Clank. So
yeah.
it's not like Ratchet and Clank are on another adventure and they're just already like have a established relationship, like we've seen with some other video game movies where they're like, actually, this Resident Evil movie takes place in between the games and that is all
Oh
canon.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like that's always the tough part with these kind of things is like how much with video game movies, like how much do you put in that is related to the games and in what way,
I when you were
but
talking and you said a phrase and it made me think of funnily think of the idea of like, oh, like it's Christmas time, the extended fam is here, kids opened up presents, so we're gonna be eating lunch, but let's put on a movie to have in the background. Oh, I want to watch Ratchet and Clank, Dad. Okay, fine, we'll
don't
put it
do it.
on. And then
Don't
like
do
there's
it.
some grandpa that like he hasn't got off the couch to go. He's just chilling there. Maybe he's on a phone or whatever, and the movie's playing. And after he's like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" Because honest to God, that feels like this is a perfect example of someone that has no idea what Ratchet and a Clank even are. Watching this movie, be like, "What the fuck did I just watch?"
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah.
So we, like I mentioned, and like Devin mentioned, review these movies and we give them a graded tier score. Very simply, we go S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. What we like to say is, I think we'll start from the top and go to the bottom. The S rank films are, as far as video game movies are concerned, because this is different than a movie ranking scale. As far as video game movies are concerned, the S tier are the we can't really ask for anything better. These are probably as best as video game movies are going to get, whether it's being an adaptation on a video game or being just a movie within the constraints of what the video games are about. This is the best as what it's going to get. I have our chart here. In our S tier, 3 examples we have is Detective Pikachu, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Yes, we are called the Sonic Movie Show, and our biases definitely helped us love that movie. I still would stand by that anyway, as far as video game movies are concerned. The A tier movies.
We watched it twice too. We could have changed that ranking
exactly.
a couple weeks ago, and we didn't.
I guess it's fair. We could always rechange some of these, but we stuck with it. The A tier are movies that are just a step down, obviously. These are movies where, like, yes, this is fantastic. There are so much in this movie that I love. Everything it has going for it, even if it's supposed to be serious, but it has this campiness to it. You know what I mean? Like the Super Mario Brothers movie, or even a modern movie that's like supposed to be kind of cool, but like this is kind of goofy and dumb, but still fun anyway. Like Rampage, for instance, or a serious, like, we would like to make a Mortal Kombat movie. And it does pretty much everything good in that movie. And the Super Mario Brothers movie, we put that in the A rank as well. Both the old and the new. That's what A rank is for us. I feel like the poster child for the A rank is the 90s Street Fighter movie with Raul Julia and Jean-Claude Van Damme. It is just a fucking fun time.
Yes, some of the cult classics sneak up in the rankings.
For sure.
I'm not ashamed to say that. Yeah. They deserve it, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The 93 Mario Brothers movie is fucking good. It's not in the ways that it might want you to think.
Out of all the things, and like, we don't go out of our way to like do hot takes for the sake of hot takes, but like, I think that is our biggest hot take.
That's a hot take.
We're probably alone. Yeah. Either that or the Street Fighter movie. I think maybe the Street Fighter movie might be a little bit more of a hotter take, because I've seen some people be like, hey, actually, Super Mario Brothers 90s movie is just kind of weird, and that's cool. But like, I haven't heard anyone say any good things about the Street Fighter movie.
Really, for me, it's the opposite. I hear people be like, yeah, Raul Julia, he fucking killed it. Jean-Claude Van Damme, he did a lot of cocaine in his trailer, and he was on for that movie. That is confirmed. He did cocaine during the filming of that movie. B, these are movies that are, they have something going for them. They're not amazing, but there is a spark there that was seized upon. Maybe it's actually following a bit of the games a little bit more than some of the lower movies on our tiers do. Maybe it's just because it clearly is having fun with itself and not at the expense of us, the viewers.
It's at least
There's something
enjoyable.
there that's good.
It's enjoyable.
The original Mortal Kombat movie is a good example of that. It's campy. It's very corny. It's trying to do something cool. It nails it a little bit, but then there's some moments that are like, this is so goofy, but I'm not upset by it either. That's that. I mean, the original Resident Evil movie as well. Dead or Alive was a perfect example of
that was a
the
gem.
Fuck did I
That's
just
one
watch?
Of my favorites.
I guess
that
in
was
a good
gem.
way.
That was a gem. Though.
I was not expecting that. The C ranking. These are middle of the road movies, as C might, kind of convey to you. These are movies that are like, it's whatever, it was a video game movie. Maybe it's because it was heavily reliant on video game lore that requires you to have seen another movie, and there is no payoff for what the movie does at the beginning, middle, and end it within itself. Maybe it's just because, God damn it, I feel like we've seen this before. That's why there are at least 3, there's 4 Resident Evil movies in here.
Where like there's moments we liked in those movies, but like overall the package was just kind of like,
it's
cool, thanks.
Little whatever. Yeah.
It's like getting socks for Christmas, where you need them, and you're kind of like, you'll like them when you need them, but like, I kind of wanted a Game Boy. I wanted a Game Boy game.
These are Game Boy themed socks. Like, they're cool socks. You didn't want
you
them,
have
though.
you have Pikachu socks.
Yeah,
but you wanted
socks.
yellow version for Christmas.
Exactly. You wanted a VHS of Pokemon anime, not another pair of Pikachu socks. The D ranking. These are boring movies. Straight up. These are movies they're not bad. Maybe there's bad elements in them. There's clearly not a lot of good elements in them.
It's kind of like watch something else. There's better options on the table.
Assassin's Creed is a perfect example. There is just nothing going on in that movie.
There's action scenes that are kind of cool, but that's about it. And then I still love that, like, the whole moral of the story was free will?
Something.
Question mark? Not even
about the story. It's just
against,
presenting a question mark to the audience and being like, what do you think? I don't know.
What's the question? What you ask me?
Exactly. The E tier movies are bad movies. These are movies such as Blood Rain, Monster Hunter, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and The King of Fighters. These are movies that are just bad. There's really not much to even redeem in it. Maybe it doesn't understand the source material, and it doesn't try to take that in a way that's at least something else that could be interesting, like some of the Resident Evil movies.
Usually, we in that
This is
we usually
just
have
bad.
like nothing in there that we can like. I would say that like we really love, like there's not even anything we really like. Like we didn't. I think in like Monster Hunter for that example, like there was this like the only cool thing was like I guess the visuals were well done enough, but like that's about it.
And that
Like,
can't
who cares?
carry a movie that's mostly shot in a desert. Like, did Paul W.S. Anderson play Monster Hunter? There's like forests and jungles and beautiful waterfalls and ice vistas.
There was the
And
jungle
movie
at the
was
end,
in a.
right?
I don't
But then
remember.
most of like 90%.
Maybe that's another problem. You don't remember the movies. And then the F tier. That's just the really, really bad tier. We have one movie in there right now because it is offensive. And I don't mean this in a I get easily offended type of person. This is a movie that's just like alleged Nazi bullshit. I'm just going to throw that in there. You know what I mean?
You just want to be a Nazi real bad.
Allegedly. You know what I mean?
Allegedly.
Okay. Maybe. I don't know. So let's talk about the movies we've seen so far on this quote unquote season of the Sonic movie show. Whoops. Toggled over too far. Like I said, we watched the 2018 movie Tomb Raider. We gave it an A rank. We watched Resident Evil Degeneration. We gave it the rank of C. Tekken Blood Vengeance, a C. Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge, a B. And Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15, a D. I forgot that was that low, but it's fair. Now we're going to do Ratchet and Clank. It is your movie.
Yeah.
You get the first your first statement. You get your first statement.
Halfway through I was like, okay, maybe if the second half really pulls itself together, maybe there's some cool ending battle scene, or like maybe the comedy like actually gets funny to us. To me, and I'm hopefully to Ethan. I'm like, maybe I could pull a C out of this still. Nah, dog, this is a D. This is a D. I mean, and I would say it's in the lower D section. It's. I know we don't do that, but like how I'm kind of like looking at it from a scale, I'm like, I'm lucky that this isn't a. I don't think it's an E because I don't think it's bad. I think it's just boring, has no soul. But like I said, I think there are people who tried to make this movie good for the most part. It tried to take from the source material or to flesh out some things that maybe they can't in the game version. So I'm happy at the very least it's not an E, but I'm kind of disappointed it's not a C. Because when I drafted it, I was like, if I can get a C out of this, I'll take it. Maybe I'll be surprised and it's a B. Like I was like, if it got to high C, low B range, I'm like, that is exceeding expectations. So the fact that I'm still disappointed is kind of a bummer for me. But like, if I'm being honest, I'm putting this in the D section.
D is where I put it as well. I feel like it describes the boring vapidness of our previous D description. There is nothing really going on in this movie. It is just, I don't know, 95 minutes of nonsense. Of just stuff
that's actually a benefit that it's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
If we got to 2 hours, then that might have put it over the edge to me. But I'm like, wow, I sat for 2 hours watching this. Like
I could sit here and argue for E just off the merits of like, well, sure, everyone wants to make a good movie except if you're Uwe Boll and you don't want to make a good movie for whatever reason. You know, and everyone wants to make a good movie. Everyone tries. Just because they also try doesn't mean they get a little bit of slack. And I could argue that, well, like, it tries to maybe attempt a theme and it just kind of just throws in the face of the viewers over and over again without actually wanting to say anything or do anything. It actively tries to undermine our main characters and how we kind of view them from the sake of the video games and how lovable they could be. I could argue that those are detriments to bring it lower to E. But if there's anything this movie has done, it has drained all of the energy out of me to care. And I feel like that's what a D movie does. You can be angry at an E movie, but I'm just kind of whatever about
you have
the
feelings
D.
with an E movie. That's the big thing, I think. That's the biggest differentiator. We're actually upset
Exactly.
that we watched it.
So I think we're in accordance with each other. I think Ratchet and Clank.
It sucks that we had 2
2016 is a
movies
D.
back to back. Like I know this is like a very light competition, but I'm like kind of bummed we've had 2 kind of just boring movies back to back because
Yeah.
I'm hoping
So-
I'm hoping we get some wild cards soon. But
Honestly, and I granted, I'm putting myself. Here's how I predict the rest of these 6 movies to net out. Here's my prediction.
okay,
I predict
We're halfway
Persona
through,
3. I predict Persona 3, the movie number 2, Midsummer Night's Dream, which is the next movie on our list, and it's mine. I predict a C for that. I predict everything else to be D or lower. I think Dead Space Downfall could be something where it's like, wow, I
that's
wasn't
my
expecting
one hope.
this.
That's my one hope. I
Maybe.
have that and Corpse Party. I'm not looking forward to Angry Birds, but Angry Birds is in the same scenario as Ratchet and Clank, where at the point of the draft I was like, I think this is best player available. This is best player available. If I get a D out of this, maybe that's good.
Because there were more movies. There were 6 other movies in the pool than what you see on screen here.
Yeah, and I didn't know about many of them, and I'm like, maybe it's funny.
So Persona
Maybe
3,
that-
the second Persona 3 movie, I predict a C. Dead Space Downfall,
I'm hoping it's just
maybe
cool.
a C, but probably a D. Ni no Kuni, I think in the same vein, because I never heard about it. I didn't even know it existed. And I made our gigantic, 200, almost 250 numbered video game movie chronological list of, here are all our potential movies. And I didn't have it on there. I didn't even know it existed. The Angry Birds movie, a D, maybe even an E. And those last 2, I'm not expecting anything higher than an E. So who knows?
I hope for I think for both of us, I'm hoping that the last 2 are just a dead or alive scenario.
Maybe,
where like, hey, this is actually campy fun, or whatever.
Yeah. Now there are point values associated with these letter grades. On YouTube, you can see over here on our little chart here, which is made in Excel. Shout out to Microsoft for allowing me to subscribe to your product. I wish I could buy it. S rank, you get 6 points. A is 5. B is 4. C is 3. D 2. E 1, and an F is a big fat 0. Honest to God, E should be 0 because you should be punished for a bad movie.
But our scale is just
If anything, it should be subtract 1 from everything. So S gives you 5 and F is a -1. If we really want to be
I think
accurate,
it's more fun to get points than subtract.
Exactly. But hey, there are a way to subtract points. Each of us did a counter pick. I counterpicked Angry Birds, and Devin counterpicked Oni Chambara, the movie Vortex, which is my last movie pick. Our bet is that the movie's actually going to be terrible. When we get to the Angry Birds, we will talk about our counterpick point system, which is my idea, and I think it's fun. That's where you can get negative points. I would get negative points if the movie's good. I get positive points if the movie's bad. But Ratchet and Clank is not a counterpick for anyone. We both gave it a D, so it's going to net you 2 points here. However, in the advent of very easily obtainable ties, we have a tiebreaker in the form of the Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter, the audience score specifically, because we find it's more fun to pretend we're in tune with the audience. It's a pretend.
There's been times where it was a lot higher than we thought, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it here. So whenever you're ready,
I will say this: so far, I have 11.67 points. And Devin, before Ratchet and Clank here, with only 2 movies on his belt, about to get his 3rd movie, has 8.42 points on his belt. So, if we add 2 points in, that's an obvious 10.42. But what is the Rotten Tomato meter percentage, which we turn into a decimal?
Yeah, and this time the website's working. I remember last time the website wasn't working. And
you tried to give me a heart attack, being like, "I just don't get points."
You just don't get points. Yeah, it's 42%, so it'll be 0.42 added.
Really? Which makes the math so easy. It's 0.84. It's just double it. Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think I'll take the audience score on that. I thought it was going to be in the 20s, so I'll take. I mean, the reviews are in the 20s. The tomato meter is 21.
That makes sense.
So I'll take usually audience score is a little bit higher. But yeah, I'll take a 42 on that because I feel like then it's closer to my C that I wanted.
And hey, with that, you are at 10.84. You are less than 1 point away from me. So it is still anyone's game.
If I get, if we're at this point, if we're only in the D range, if maybe just me getting a C could be it. So it'll be interesting.
I have what I will predict to be probably our only A rank throughout this entire season here with
That
Tomb
was the
Raider
safest
2018.
pick, really. It was between
And
that
that was
and
my first pick.
Resident Evil, and you picked first. So like, I might have picked Resident Evil still. I don't know. Like, I go back and like I had them both at like how I'm feeling in that moment. And the only issue we had with Tomb Raider, like going in, we were like, hopefully it's not as bad as the other ones. Not bad, but just not as good as the other ones. But no, yeah, I love our point system because it's just slightly chaotic, just a tad bit chaotic, and that's what I like in these kind of things. Is there's luck and there's us reviewing
Absolutely.
it, but it's just
and we're
fun.
not afraid to admit that a movie that might be on our personal list is terrible or bad.
Yeah.
Like
I'm cheering for both of us to succeed,
you know?
because that means the movies we're watching are like fun. Like, I don't want them to be all D's. Don't get me wrong.
This also means, so like how we came up with this list. So there's 12 movies here, right? There was 18 movies. You can watch the movie draft, but I want to reiterate anyway because I think it's fun to kind of talk shop a little bit here. I made a list of 18 movies. How I did this, I think I picked 6 movies. I think it was 6. 6 movies I handpicked from the list of like, these are important movies, or movies that have lots of sequels and like we should really get through them. So they're on the list. There's a potential that they might not get picked, but they're on there. And then for the other, I guess, 12 movies, the rest of them, I did a random number generator using our D&D website because it was easy to type in roll a D 204, you know what I mean? Roll a random number generator there. And I picked random movies using that. I made sure there was no like double franchises in the list. Like I had to self-select some out and re-roll and make sure that there was only one Uwe Boll movie on the whole thing, which we didn't pick at all. I think it was like In the Name of the King or something like that.
I'm glad that we weren't forced to like pick all of them, because then whoever got that would just be mad.
yeah. So there were 6 off the chopping block. I think maybe next time for the important movies, I'm gonna make sure I pick some that I've heard are good without knowing, you know, because it would be kind of unfair to be like, oh, I know this.
So more Tomb Raiders, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4.
I didn't heard that it was bad or anything like that. We just heard that the sequel got canceled because no one acted on it. So yeah, that is what we're kind of doing here. Devin got a D. I have a D. We both have a C. I have an A and Devin has a B. But yet we are still less than 1 point apart. It is anyone's game. Next movie on our ranking list is Persona 3 the movie, number 2, Midsummer Night's Dream. Night spelled with a K.
Right.
Like a sword knight.
That's
like a
the
Dark
sequel,
Souls
right?
man.
To the one we watched previously last year.
I imagine it is the second quarter. Now, I started Persona 3 on PlayStation 4 following a trophy guide to 100% it. And then other games had come into my obsession recently, and I don't think I'll have finished. My plan was to have finished what I think might be what this movie covers, so I can actually have a bit of perspective. And I probably won't have that by the time we watch that movie, because I don't know when we're going to watch that movie. But yeah, that'll be the next movie we review on the Sonic Movie Show, unless a surprise video game movie
drops.
comes out. Yeah, like I know, like
straight to Netflix.
Next week we're going to be doing. Last week was a Chronicles of Diesel episode. Next week is also going to be a Chronicles of Diesel episode, I think. Right, with Fast X.
Fast X.
It isn't some weird situation where there's an overlap. Yep. X gonna give it to you. My arms are a lot shorter.
What if Fast X somehow is actually just X-Men? That's the big plot twist at the end. It's like Wolverine comes out of the car, comes out of a Dodge Charger.
And yeah, Cyclops comes out too, and we're like, no, you're from Sonic, and like literally our lives. Our things are crossing over. You know,
I mean, there's 2 Fast and Furious or Rock jokes, at least, in both Sonic movies. So like they are a lot more connected than we think. So, which is weird. But yes, I know I said this earlier, but you know I'm gonna say it again. What did you think of Ratchet and Clank 2016, the movie? And you know what? Throw the video game in the conversation as well. If you're a big Ratchet head, are you a Jackster out there? A clanker.
It's
like a Quaker, but I'm a clanker.
I'm a clanker. I'm a quark head. If you're a big one of those things we just said out there, tweet at us at Sonic Movie Show. Let us know what you thought. Follow us there while you're at it on Twitter and on TikTok, and on Instagram, and on YouTube. You can type in youtube.com/@SonicMovieShow, and you find this video you're already watching. So just hit subscribe. Ring the bell, I guess. I have no bells rung.
Hit that bell.
So, whatever, I get
Ethan needs his bell rung. Please click that.
I need someone to assault me. Beat the shit out of me. You can do so at
Teach him
Ethan
a
Absolutely
lesson.
on Twitter. And if you want to send the footage to Devin here, he's this way, on Twitter at CursonaFun, do so. Let us know what you think. We're going to see you next week for the Chronicles of Diesel. And as always...
To review the Meg.
Yes. And as always, goodbye.
The Meg.